All right, folks, thank you so much for your patience. We're going to get started with the program. First off, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. Great turnout once again for this year's They Stepped Up to the Plate. My name is Scott Petoniak, and I'm truly honored that organizer Jeff Klein invited me to serve as your Master of Ceremonies as we honor 4 inspirational men whose love of baseball played a role in striking out bigotry. We're in for a real great treat tonight to listen to these gentlemen share their courageous stories with us. I want to introduce our lineup tonight, starting off with Ike Walker. Ike was a catcher for Satchel Paige's Traveling All-Stars in 1963, and he's a longtime Rochester resident. Ike Walker. Bill McCrary played shortstop for the famed Kansas City Monarchs from 1946 through 48, and he joins us from Arkansas. Bill McCrary. Ernest Fan was a catcher with the Raleigh Tigers in 1962, and he comes to us from Alabama. Ernest. And Jake Sanders was an outfielder who split time with the Detroit Stars and Kansas City Monarchs from 1955 through 1961. And like Bill, he joins us from Alabama. Jake. We'd also like to acknowledge Robert Scott, who pitched for the New York Black Yankees from 1946 through 1950. Robert was really looking forward to being a part of tonight's festivities, but unfortunately he's dealing with a health issue and his doctor wouldn't let him travel. But let's give Robert a round of applause in absentia. I first became familiar with They Stepped Up to the Plate through a 19th century baseball teammate of mine who is a friend of Jeff Klein's, and he told me about this wonderful story of what Jeff and his daughter Michaela were doing to recognize the scores of men whose baseball exploits helped change America. And I was also able to interview Ike Walker, who graciously shared his stories about playing with the great Negro Leagues pitcher Satchel Paige, and we're going to hear more about that in detail a little bit later when Ike speaks. I just want to say on a personal level that I think this is truly remarkable what Jeff, Michaela, and the rest of the Klein family have done in recognizing these men who have been forgotten by history. And I want to push you towards the Facebook page, They Stepped Up to the Plate, and also encourage you to help out by going to the GoFundMe page that's been set up to raise money for events such as tonight's, and travel expenses and everything else that Jeff incurs to put on a program like this. So please, if you want to find out some more information, and we're going to have Jeff come up here shortly to talk more in detail about how this all came about and what you can do to help out. But before I ask Jeff to come up here, I'm going to ask another member of the Klein family. Jeff's 7-year-old son, Porter, has a special announcement that he would like to make to us before we get going. So, Porter, you want to come up here?
Good evening. My name is Porter Klein. Please silence your cell phones for tonight's presentation. Thank you.
Great job, Porter. I actually just checked to make sure mine was off, so thanks for the reminder. I mentioned about Jeff Klein and his daughter Michaela. They were the people behind this wonderful event and this project of, again, recognizing these men who have been forgotten by history, unfortunately. And Jeff and Michaela and the rest of the Klein family are working very hard to make sure that we remember these people, and I think we should. It is my distinct pleasure now to bring up to the podium Jeff Klein.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming. My name's Jeff Klein, and I had been collecting Negro League autographs for about 15 years prior to one cold February day back in 2014 when my daughter came home during Black History Month, and she said, "Daddy, I have some new heroes I want to tell you about." And I go, "Who are they, honey? Who are these heroes?" And she said, "I learned about Rosa Parks and Ruby Bridges today." And she asked me if she could write a letter to Ruby Bridges. So I looked at her and I said, "Well, I don't know if you can do that, honey. I learned about Ruby Bridges when I was a kid, and if she's alive, she's got to be about 100 years old." Well, I did the research. I found out that Ruby Bridges is still alive, and she's not 100 years old. And it got me thinking about when we learn as kids, I don't think the concept of time is really ingrained in us. As a child growing up in the 1970s, learning about Ruby Bridges was a kindergartner in 1960 in New Orleans. She was the first black girl to go to an all-white school in New Orleans. Norman Rockwell painted a famous painting that you've probably seen where there's a little girl walking up the steps into school being escorted by the National Guard. And the title of that art is The Problem We All Live With. So I found the address for Michaela, and at 7 years old, Michaela sat down one night and she wrote a 2.5-page letter to Ruby Bridges. So I seized the opportunity to teach Michaela more about civil rights, but I wanted to do it through the eyes of baseball because I'm a firm believer that baseball played a huge role in the civil rights movement in the United States. So I went into my office and I grabbed out the baseball cards of the guys who got their start in the Negro Leagues and made it to the majors, guys like Hank Aaron, Willie Mays, Satchel Paige, Larry Doby, Monty Irvin. And I showed Michaela these baseball cards, and she loved it. And I said, "Well, I have something else I want to show you. I want to explain to you what happened to some of the players that played segregated baseball but never got a chance to go to the majors." So I showed her all the Negro League autographs that I'd been collecting, most of them on 3x5 cards. And up until this point in this conversation with my daughter, if I found an autograph that I wanted on eBay, I would just go and buy it. So Michaela looks at me at 7 years old and she said, "Daddy, why don't you write letters too?" And I stood there for a second in shock, and it had never dawned on me that I could actually try to correspond with these pioneers. So I started doing my research, and I found out there were about 7,000 players that played segregated baseball from 1920 until 1962. And one of the players was Mr. Bill McCrary, and he was one of the first letters that I wrote. And when I received a letter back from Bill, he included some baseball cards that he had made up. Now, most of these players never had baseball cards made by a major baseball card company, so a lot of them had their own cards made up. And that's what Bill sent me. But what really struck me about the correspondence with Mr. McCrary was he put a little yellow Post-it note inside the letter with his phone number, and he said, "Give me a call, I'll tell you some of the things that happened." So I told my wife, I said, "I'm going to call Bill McCrary." And the next day, she goes, "Have you called him yet?" I go, "No, not yet." And the next day. It took me about 2 weeks to finally build up the courage to actually call him. And when I did, I thought I was going to have maybe 5 minutes on the phone with Bill. And I sat in my driveway after getting home, and my wife looked outside, and she saw me talking, and I pointed like that, and she knew I was still on the phone. The first time I spoke with Bill McCrary, I was on the phone with him for 45 minutes, and I couldn't get enough of what he had to share. So at that point, I started adding my phone number to the letters that I was writing. And I started hearing back from guys. Guys started calling us. Guys that hadn't received fan mail in 10, 15 years were calling to find out what They Stepped Up to the Plate was all about. And we decided, after hearing what some of these players had to say, that what selfishly started as a way for me to collect autographs and teach my own kids about civil rights, we decided we need to share this with the community because their stories are absolutely amazing. There's stories that they're going to share with you tonight that MLB doesn't want to acknowledge, that the media wasn't covering, because history teaches us that Jackie Robinson went to the Dodgers on April 15th, 1947. and the media followed him there. These guys kept playing segregated baseball through the 1940s, through the 1950s, and up until 1962. And if you just look at Jackie Robinson's career, Jackie Robinson played 10 years of Major League Baseball, and if there's any baseball fans in here, which I hope there are, you know that's a long career. He spent 10 years in the major leagues, and when he retired in '57, 3 teams had yet to integrate. And the Boston Red Sox finally did integrate in 1959, and the only reason they integrated was because the NAACP filed a lawsuit against them for discrimination. So when we hear that the floodgates were opened, after talking to these guys and everyone else that we've corresponded with, it dawned on us that the floodgates didn't open. It was really more of a trickle. MLB wasn't quick to embrace black players, but they kept playing. They kept toiling through the Negro League system. Now, they could have given up at that point. They could have said, Jackie Robinson is our hero, we're done. We're done, we've got it made now. But they kept going. I wonder how long it would have taken MLB to acknowledge the level of play that the blacks could do, the same level or better than the guys that were playing in the major leagues, had they all just said, you know, we're done, we'll wait to see, they're going to come knocking on our door. But they didn't. They kept toiling in the Negro Leagues and in the minor league systems and showing whites and the managers that they could play baseball. So that's what we seek to do. There's discussion amongst the professional or the historians that call themselves Negro League historians, and they debate when the Negro Leagues ended. I've heard when Jackie Robinson went to Montreal, that was the end of the Negro Leagues. I've heard April 15th, 1947 was the end of the Negro Leagues. I've heard 1953 was the end of the Negro Leagues. I've heard 1959, 1962. So we take a different approach. We don't debate semantics. Our goal is to honor anybody who played segregated baseball because society forced you to. If you were in the Negro Major Leagues, the Negro Minor Leagues, a barnstorming team, or an all-star team, we don't care. What we are trying to do is locate as many living members from that era that we can and honor them. And fortunately, we've heard back from 75 players now. And so what we decided to do was hold an event here in Rochester. We started it in 2015 was our first event. This is our second. We hope to do this as long as we can. And we can do that with the community support that we're getting tonight. And I just wanted to tell you that's why we're all here. And that's how they stepped up to the plate started. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeff. And again, I can't emphasize enough about getting behind this and making this bigger and bigger and bigger. It is such a good cause. I had mentioned that this is a family affair for the Kleins, and so to introduce our lineup tonight, we're going to have 2 more members of the Klein family here, and I want to start out with our leadoff hitter being C.J. Klein to introduce. He will introduce the first 2 speakers in our lineup. C.J.?
Good evening. My name is C.J. Klein. I'm a 4th grader of Honey Falls Lima School District. I'm very happy to be here and to be able to introduce our guests tonight. Our first guest is a catcher for the 1963 Satchel Paige All-Star. He had a base batting average of .298. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving a warm welcome to Rochester's very own Mr. Ike Walker.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming out tonight. Just want to talk about some things that happened and when we played in the Negro League. Growing up, my brothers and I had dreams of being a professional baseball player. 2 of my brothers played for the Raleigh Tigers. The years was 1960 and 61. one of my brothers, Oscar, he was a second baseman, and my brother Johnny Walker was a pitcher. Life in the Negro League was rough going for the players. They travel in old buses and slept on the hard bus seat, and that was terrible. Their pay was based on their attendance in the stand. So just say for like today, it rained pretty much all day. So there would be no ball game and there would be no pay for the players. The owners offer their players contract that usually promise them little money and almost no protection from being traded or fired at the last minute. So I meant that, you know, if you didn't perform, we could get rid of you at any time. Segregation played a big role in black players breaking into baseball that particular time. A team roster often changed from week to week. So if you're on a team this week, next week you might be hitting the road. My achievement started. My brother Oscar and I played together on 3 different teams, starting in 1963, barnstorming with the Satchel Paige All-Stars. We had a team roster of 15 players, traveling all over the country and Canada. I was the catcher for the greatest pitcher of his time. We played about 111 games, playing against professional and college teams, winning 96 of them. Page was the main drawing card, a Hall of Famer pitcher, and a gifted showman. People swatted to see the Satchel Paige All-Stars play. They knew that the brand of ball we played would be spectacular. I learned a lot from the father figure and shared some laughs with a pitcher who was known for revealing his age. Sometime I would say, "Satchel, how old are you?" His reply would be, "Don't worry about how old I am, just you live as long as me." That ever saying something? Also, Satchel Paige, he was about 6'6", lanky pitcher, and he had so many pitching motions. Satchel never threw the same way twice. On the first pitch, he might throw straight overhand. On the next pitch, he would whip the ball sidearm. On the third, he would go quickly toward the plate. So that means if the batter is standing up there, he don't know what's going on. There's a quick pitch. So that's how he kept people off banners. Satchel called his fastball B-ball, which made a buzzing sound when it passed you. So that means it was going pretty fast. And Satchel was a joker too. He was a guy that, you know, he could do a lot of things. You know, he used to tell us, "I could nip frosting off a cake with my fastball." So that must be really fast. And I know that from a fact, I was, you know, his catcher. He would line up pop bottles across home plate, throw until he could knock them over one after the other, and that's very true. I remember we played an exhibition game in St. Lazare, Manitoba. That was our first game in Canada, and the team was St. Lazare Athletics. And Satchel Paige was pitching that day. He pitched 3 innings, and he pitched the second inning from second base. We won the game 7-2, but you know, he pitched the second inning from second base. And he would say things like jokes like, you know, "It's a question of mind over matter. If you don't mind, age don't matter." So, you know, it was like stuff like that. then he was telling us about one of the players that was in the Negro League that played on his team with him, and that person named Cool Papa Bell. I think you guys will remember him. And he was like a fleet-foot center fielder. And Page would say he was so fast he turned the lights out and jumped into the bed before it got dark. Wow. And I was wondering, how did he do that? But, you know, it happened. And we had we played in Omaha, Nebraska. It was like a racer incident. Before the game, the pitcher and the catcher, they painted their face black. So Satchel Paige got on the loudspeaker, and he told them, say, until those clowns take that S off their face, there will be no ball game today. So the ball game started. So what happened, about 3 innings we had played. In the 4th inning, we kicked the ball around a couple of times, 2 errors. So we got 2 men on base. So Satchel Paige walked the next batter intentionally. So the base is loaded. So what happened, he called the outfielders in and he told them to sit around the infield. And he struck out the next 3 batters. I had a little playing time with the New York Mets. My brother and I, Oscar, we played together on 3 different teams. And played with the New York Mets organization. We was assigned to the William Penn League, New York William Penn League. You know, and back then you had to stay separate from your white teammates. And during that time, meal money was $6 a day. And you know that the guys today, $6, where that's going. Those guys get $200 and $300 a day for meal money. But that was back in the day. So we was playing a home game. And we were playing the Batavia Pirates. My brother Oscar, he was in the dugout, and I was down in the bullpen warming up a pitcher. Cito Gaston, he played with Batavia Pirates, and in the 3rd inning, I think he had a home run off of one of our pitchers. And as he rounded the base, my manager called him a black nigger. He didn't realize, I guess he didn't realize my brother was in the dugout. And the next game, I guess what happened, he said my brother had to go down in the dugout instead of go down in the bullpen instead of being in the dugout. And so about a month and a half later, we got reassigned to the Florida State League. So we opt out not to go back to the Florida State League. So what we did, we ended up going to St. Lazare, Manitoba, playing for the St. Lazare Athletics. That was the first team we played for doing the exhibition game. And my brother Oscar, he played 4 years for him, and I played 2. We was both like what they called impact ball players. He was a better hitter than me, but I could play, different positions. I was a catcher. Come to the game, I didn't know where I would play the next. I would be a catcher, or either I was going to play left field or shortstop. So, and then I did some pitching. And my brother Oscar, in 1964, he batted .352. We lost out in the championship game. The next year, 1965, he hit 452. We won the championship. And he was the most valuable player of the league. I was a pitcher, and I had like pitched 31 innings, and I had 29 strikeouts. After that, playing up in Canada, 2009, Oscar and I was voted into the Canadian Hall of Fame. Always, Satchel Paige always told us, say, never look back, somebody might be gaining on you. And that's pretty much true in life. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ike. I want to call back C.J. Klein to make his next introduction.
Our second guest played baseball for the 1946 to 48 Kansas City Monarchs. Will Satchel Paige give him his nickname? He was a shortstop with a life batting average of .341. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving a warm welcome to Mr. Bill Youngblood McQuarrie.
Good evening, and thank you. I played with the Kansas City Monarchs 1946, 47, and 48. I was at Kansas City when Branch Rickey came and got Jackie Robinson. But at that particular time, he didn't come after Jackie Robinson. He came after the best ball player. And the best ball player at that time was Willard Brown. But Jackie had been in the Army, been to college, and had a heck of a personality. That's why Branch Rickey took him. Some of the things that you hear might sound a little funny, but I want to tell you something about Satchel Paige because I played with him. I played with Buck O'Neill, played with so many of them, I can't remember. But anyway, I want to tell you this about Satchel Paige. I was playing with the Satchel Paige All-Stars, and we were playing the Western League All-Stars, which was their next move would be to the majors. So we were waiting for Satchel Paige to come because, you know, we'd get there on a bus. They'd fly him in. So he came in about 20 minutes before a game. He walked down to the dressing room, put his uniform on, walked out of the dressing room to the bullpen, threw 3 pitches, said, "I'm ready." He went out there on the mound and pitched 7 innings of no hit, no run ball against the Western League All-Stars. Now in the 7th inning, he set all of us down except the catcher, struck out the side, and waved at the crowd. He was just that good. Now another thing I'd like to tell is that some of the ball players didn't like the attitude that Satch had, but he knew what he was doing, he knew what he could do, and he done what he wanted to do. It was that type of person. Now, there isn't much I can tell you, but if there was any chance of you asking me some questions, I could answer them for you if I could. Baseball, as far as I'm concerned, is not baseball now like it used to be. We played baseball. We didn't mess around. You didn't have to go do this and go do that before you get out on the diamond. You just walked out there and played. And some of the ball players back here will tell you about it, that playing in those days, you played because you didn't have to go to take a shower. I mean, not to take a shower. You had to go to any place to get yourself ready to go. You just went out and played. And people saw baseball. I can remember I was playing with Kansas City, and we were playing in Chicago. And the Cubs were playing on the north side, and we were playing on the south side in Comiskey Park. More people came down to Comiskey Park than there was at the Cubs game, simply because they wanted to see the Negro League players play. We had a good, they would give us a decent write-up, but they wouldn't give us the type of write-up that we should have gotten, because they didn't want us to be better than them. But I can tell you, we were. That's about it. Thank you. Another thing I'd like to tell you, I don't see well, so if you see somebody come up here and help me, that's why.
Thank you so much, Bill. To introduce the next two speakers, I want to call up the young lady who was the inspiration, as you heard, behind this fabulous project, Michaela Klein. Michaela?
Good evening. My name is Michaela Klein, and I am a 6th grader in the Honeoye Falls Lima School District. What started as a letter I wrote to Ruby Bridges has become this event. They stepped up to the plate. Our next guest was a catcher for the 1962 Raleigh Tigers. He signed a contract with the St. Louis Cardinals organization right out of high school, and he batted .303. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving a warm welcome to Mr. Ernest Big Dog Fan.
How y'all doing tonight? I'm going to say a little bit about myself, but my emphasis is going to be on those guys right there.
Let me get this up because you are tall.
I played all levels of baseball. I loved it, slept it, and I ate it. Pee Wee League, Pony League, Little League, high school baseball, Negro League baseball, and professional baseball. I got a lot of whoopings when I was a kid because we had a tennis ball, and I used to cut my mama broom up. Tennis ball and a broomstick. That's how I learned to play baseball. I left high school at the age of 16, just turned 17, went to the Negro League. We had one of the most talented high school teams in the country in the late 50s and the 60s, early 60s. We sent 7 guys to the Negro League. 5 of them signed professional baseball contracts. That's how talented we were. Some of you heard of Blue Moon Odom? That's my high school teammate. He went on to pitch Oakland to 3 World Series. We were very talented. When I went off into Negro League Baseball, I was not accustomed to racial hate and segregation because I was raised in an integrated neighborhood. My next door neighbor was white. He had 2 little girls that was my age. When we got out there playing, they were right there with us. When I went into Negro League, I knew what we were there for, trying to open doors. But my God, when I went into professional baseball, somebody opened the floodgate. They didn't want black baseball players playing professional baseball. They didn't. Now, I've been trying to find an answer to this question for 70 years. If we, as black people, will go and fight a war to defend this country, how come I couldn't play baseball? You know, I made a lot of enemies in professional baseball because I played for 4 different managers. And I made it a point to go to each manager and ask him that same question. Do you know I haven't got an answer yet? I have not got an answer yet. Why couldn't we enjoy the entertainment this country had to offer? Now, I know a lot of you heard this slogan, baseball is American game. That's the biggest lie of all. It's not. If baseball American game, what am I? What am I? Ain't I American? Why couldn't I play? And I know some of you are saying, well, that's back there. Do you know there's only 4% blacks in professional baseball now? 4%. Do you know what the United States are doing? Those owners are doing? They've got baseball camps set up overseas, training foreign ball players to come over here and play. Why can't they take that money, put it into black and white baseball players in this country and train them? It don't make sense. It don't make sense. Now, I think I said enough about myself. I would say talk about these guys right here. Look, guys, there's a right way to play baseball, and there's a wrong way. Fundamentals win championship. You guys can go out there tomorrow and win the championship if you play fundamentals. Get them on, get them over, get them in. Every phase of baseball has fundamentals. A pitcher has fundamentals. A catcher has fundamentals. If you see a shortstop not covering first base, you should be third base, you should be over there. That's fundamental. You should be in the right position every time a baseball is hit. Guys, that's winning championship. But right now, today in your life, the most important thing for you right now is an education. And education is the most important thing for you. When I stopped playing professional baseball, I only had a high school education. I looked at myself and I said, what am I going to do now? Ain't nobody going to hire me, and all I got is a diploma. I joined the military. I spent 30 years in the military and got an education. I came out of the military as an engineer supervisor. Now, how I wound up selling furniture, I don't know. But I love people. I love people. I love to interact with people. That's why I love kids. And you guys had the chance to do the same thing a lot of other kids have done. But you gotta get an education, kids. There's nothing you can do in life without an education. And you think about this, and I'm gonna sit down. If some baseball scout wanted to give you $1 million and you don't have an education, you're gonna be broke. Because you don't know what to do with that $1 million. You take that money and you make money with it. It takes an education to tell you, invest your money into something. You guys have got to stop thinking about taking all this money, going out, getting hurt. Then you got to go back home. Then you got to give back everything you got because you didn't think about an education. You need to stay in school and get an education. If you don't, you're going to be just like I was, out there didn't know which way to go. I had surgery done on both of my knees. I had to leave baseball. I had kneecap surgery, replaced. I had ligament surgery because I was a catcher and a pitcher. And they wanted to get rid of me. Let me tell you something, coach. If you got a guy that want to change from catcher to pitcher, don't put him back behind that plate because he's going to ruin his knees. I'm 6'6", and when I was in high school, I weighed 230. It's bad on my knee to be that tall, to keep stooping and bending. Then they took me out behind there and put me on the pitching mound to get rid of me because I could hit and I could pitch. They put me back behind the plate and sent me to Florida. I got to the point where I couldn't even walk or move. You don't do that to them, coach. Teach the pitcher the fundamentals, teach your catches. That's why you see a lot of short catching now. You don't see these big old catchers like me no more. It's bad on their knees. Parents, the last thing I'm gonna say is to you. I know that money look good. I know that 2 Mercedes in your driveway look good. Make that kid get an education. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ernest. Michaela Klein, can you come up and do another introduction here?
Our last guest was an outfielder for the Detroit Stars and the Kansas City Monarchs from 1955 to 1961. He had a lifetime batting average of .340. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving a warm welcome to Mr. James Jake Sanders.
Good evening to all I have not spoken to. This is another blessed day that the Lord have made for us, so let's rejoice. So let me start off about education to you. I want you to know I dropped out of school for 2 years. I walked around doing nothing. Then something hit me, said go back to school and finish. So I go back to school. I finished in 1956, and I finished 34th in my class of 140 students. Today, my wife is an educator, and by me going back to school, let me let you know what happened. I'm one of 13 children, 5th in the class. But just going back to school have me where I am at today in the Negro League. Today, my wife and I, we buy old houses, we fix them up, we sell them. Just by going back to school, getting that education. Now let's go back to the Negro League, where I made history. The Negro League, to me, was one of the greatest organizations in the United States. I know you've heard of the Hidden Figures, the 3 black women that got the number right so we can go to the moon and back. That was just 3. In the Negro League, we had 4 black women to actually play baseball in the Negro League. Toni Stone, Connie Morgan, Mamie Peanut Johnson, and Minnie Fox. I like Toni Stone because I was at Rickwood Field, the oldest ballpark in the nation, and Toni Stone was playing. And I told my dad, if that lady can play baseball, I want to play baseball too. I was considered one of the fastest guys in the Negro League. We talk about Cool Papa Bell. Cool Papa Bell set that record at 12 seconds around the base. I was next with 14 seconds. Everywhere I go, people want to know who was the fastest. I said, Cool Papa Bell. I never went from first to third on a bunt. I never scored from first base, on a bunt. How did that happen? Scored from first base on a bunt. So let me tell you. No, let me go to it. No, I better tell you before, get your mind all set up. What happened? Cool was on first base. The guy got up, he bunted the ball. Cool was running. He never stopped running. The pitcher came off the mound to retrieve the ball. The catcher came off, so they met together. So Cool, who was coming home plate? So Cool scored. I like baseball. The greatest hitter, home run hitter ever. You think it was Babe Ruth. You think it was Hank Aaron. You think it was Bond. But it was Josh Gibson. Josh Gibson hit more home runs than all of us. He hit over 900 home runs in the Negro League. He is the only man ever hit a ball fair out of Yankee Stadium over the triple deck center field roof. He also hit one out of Griffin Stadium in Washington. He also hit one some other place. He hit it so far, they say it never came down. But the next day, they were playing the game, and they heard a rumble in the sky, and they looked up, and that was the ball coming down. The umpire ran out and said, "You was out from yesterday." The Negro League was a tough league to play. Somebody was there waiting on your job. You only had a 1-year contract. I played with 5 different teams. The Birmingham Black Barons, the Kansas City Monarchs, the Detroit Star, and most of what Ike was talking about, with 5 teams. And what I really didn't like about the Negro League, we received $1 a day to eat on. That's 50 cents in the morning, 50 cents in the evening. Now, back in the 50s, 50 cents would buy you a bowl of grits, an egg, and a biscuit. In the evening, you can eat a bowl of beans and a hunk of cornbread. We have eaten onion sandwich, bologna sandwich, pork and bean sandwich. Just slap it between 2 pieces of bread and go to eating. We never stop. We get on that bus. Today we're in Rochester. Tomorrow we're in Birmingham playing a baseball game. It wasn't easy. Today, I just love the idea of Buck O'Neill. But my coach when I was with the Monarchs, he and I was inducted into the Milwaukee Brewer Wall of Fame in Milwaukee, Wisconsin in '06. I've been honored by Cooperstown. Hank Aaron was there. He brought me my gift. I wears it, and I don't have it on today. But I thank God for the Negro League, and I thank God for my parents. And my dad lived to get 100, and my mother was 99 when they both passed. But 13 children in a 3-room house. Mom and dad made 15. Today I live, but before I go there, the water was in the middle of the block. The bathroom was in the middle of the block. But thanks to God, where I live at today, I have 5 bedrooms in the house. We have 3 bedrooms in the house. We have 2 dens in the house. We have a living room, dining room, and a breakfast room in the house. And it's a lot on one side of the house. So if I hadn't, fellas, gone back to school, this probably never would have happened. Stay in school, get your lesson, but please listen to mom and dad. They're not gonna tell you nothing wrong. It was just nice talking to you, and I enjoyed being in Rochester. This is my first time being here. I hope to come back again, so you have a blessed day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jake. I'm told that Ernest wants to come back because he's got another story to tell us. So Ernest, come on back.
I was kind of being modest. Back in January, a plaque of me was put in the 2nd oldest ballpark in the country. That ballpark is Luther Williams Field in Macon, Georgia. That was back in January. In February, I was inducted in the Negro Southern League Museum in Birmingham, Alabama. So I really, even though it was rough, if I had it to do it again, I'd do it all over again. Because it was to open the door for our kids. And I would do it again.
We've got a little time here to open this up for questions, and if I could just start out with these gentlemen. Do we have is this mic, can we use this as well? Testing, okay. I'm a huge fan of Buck O'Neill. Had the privilege in my newspaper career to interview him on several occasions. Of course, America, we all learned about Buck O'Neill through Ken Burns' series when he was telling those wonderful stories. But it bothers me that he is not in the Hall of Fame. And I know these were prominent Negro League historians that made that decision a few years ago. I wonder if you guys could talk a little bit about Buck O'Neill, because he was such a great ambassador, just a great human being.
Buck O'Neill was a great first baseman. When you come out and play first base, Buck O'Neill can coach. He was the first black coach in the major league, which is Power Plus. When he was the manager of the Monarchs when I was there, I never thought I would even be around a guy like that. It was just an honor for me to be there with Buck O'Neill. But when Buck O'Neill came to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, man, he talked so much. He talked more than a radio. Buck can talk. But Buck wasn't, when he passed on, it wasn't because he didn't make it to the Hall of Fame in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. To me, Hall of Fame is a Hall of Fame. I don't care if it's the Church Hall of Fame. You're a Hall of Famer. So I'm in the Negro League Baseball Hall of Fame in Washington, D.C. I mean, I am a Hall of Famer in my church in Fairfield, where the tornado death was at for last week. But Buck was a great man. Everybody loved him, but he could tell stories. But he was a great first baseman.
What I'd like to tell you is that Satchel Paige and Buck O'Neill took me in as their son. I was 17 years old when I went to Tennessee, and they raised me. And they told me everything about baseball that they knew, and what to do and what not to do. but they did everything that they told me not to do.
Okay, let's open it up. If you have a question, shout it out, and gentlemen would be happy to answer.
Jay, I grew up in Detroit, and this is a tremendous honor. But I grew up in Detroit, and I knew Rocky Colavito and Norm Cash and Al Kaline. Not only did I not know you, I didn't know the Detroit Stars. So I'm so pleased that you're bringing back history for me, history for our country. So thank you for that. My question is, I'd like to hear a little bit about, particularly from you, the ballparks we played in Detroit, but from all of you, about the ballparks that you played in. From Jake, particularly about Detroit, but really from all of you.
I played in Blake Stadium, Detroit. That's where the Negro League played at. I was there last week. They honored us there. We're at the new ballpark in town. It was just to say, oh man. When I first went there to see that big stadium, I was scared. I never played in a ballpark. I played in a little ballpark like Lakewood Field, the oldest ballpark in the nation, there in Birmingham, Alabama. The big stadium was something to see.
First off, I just want to say I'm very proud to even be standing in you guys' presence, so thank you very much. Quick question. We just watched a movie recently entitled Fences, and the main character, he was actually a former Negro League baseball player, and he made the comment, just basically, everybody talked about how Satchel Paige was the best guy coming out of the Negro Leagues. And he was saying, well, I used to hit home runs off the Satchel Paige on a regular basis and so on and so forth. So I always thought, I said, well, if I ever got a chance to ask anybody who actually played, who was the best player that you've personally seen or witnessed or said, whether it was Satchel Paige or anybody else, who was that person who was like one of the best players that you guys ever seen touch the bat?
Now, I might be what you call the baby of the Negro League. I'm 74 years old. These guys, I respect. I respect. They started it all. But my idol, and the guy I read so much about, and I patted myself about, they say such a thing. But I watched him pitch one time. And what he would do, they say, he don't need to go to 3 pitches to get you out. Pass it, and pass it. And you struck out. But to me, that's all I said. We had so many great players in the Negro League. We had some great players in the Negro League. The ones that they let into the Negro League, they were not the best players in the Negro League. Jackie Robinson, Willie May, Hank Aaron, they were not the best players in the Negro League. We had great players in the Negro League. And I will answer your question. Josh Gibson is the best Negro League player around.
I would say in my time when I played, I know that Satchel Paige was the basketball player. Satchel Paige could do a lot of things that no one else could do. Satchel was pretty much the face Well, he was the face of the Negro League. Teams would come get him to play on their team when he had an off day. But that didn't happen too often because Satchel pitched every single day. And to me, I would say that Satchel was good at the best, Josh Gibson, who was his catcher, and the power hitter that we talked about earlier. Those two guys was the best two players in the Negro League.
Thatcher won over 1,000 baseball games in the Negro League.
Well, I'm not one of the people who's going to try to compare it, because there are a lot of baseball players in that league. But I would honor, and I still honor, one of the best ball players I think was Ernie Banks. The reason why I say that is because when the Cubs called Ernie up, that gave me his spot.
I have a question. I love baseball as a sport. I'm really glad that you guys were able to make it here. I spent about 3 hours in the Baseball Hall of Fame trying to look up these players from an all-star game from the Negro League. I couldn't find what year it was. I did find some of the names of the players. I wondered if you guys could take a look at this photograph and see if you recognize any of the players here.
Can we do it outside? When we
Yes, you can.
We can go on. We can do that outside.
Outside? That's fine.
Hello, I have a question. So you guys are in the Negro League, and I wanted to know if there were any challenges that you guys faced that made you want to stop playing basketball. I mean, baseball.
Oh, you repeat that or come a little closer, we didn't understand.
I said, were there any challenges that you guys faced playing baseball? And if they were like very hard, did that make you want to quit playing baseball, or like what kept you going throughout the whole, league?
What kept me going was the reason we were out there. It took 60 years to open those doors to black players. The reason we was out there to open the doors for you people. We wasn't concerned about us, we took it. But we wanted to make things better for you. We didn't want you to have to struggle like we did.
The reason I played the game is because I love it. And went through a lot, heard a lot of names called me. But that didn't stop me because I wanted to play baseball. And when I got done playing baseball, I walked away from the game on my own, not on somebody else's terms.
I don't know why it ends to me, but I'll talk. There's a lot of ball players today, if they would only get education first, they have that to fall back on. They will not fall, and you could be the best ball player in the world. You get hurt today and it's all over. But if you get that education, it never leaves. So get all the education you can.
I mentioned this, I was intending to say this. We had one guy named Willie Red Harris on the team. You couldn't tell whether he was white or black. So when we stop along the road and we needed food, we always give him a note and send him in to get the food. We tell him to keep his mouth closed and his cap on his head, and they didn't know he was black too. That's something you need to know. He just didn't go anywhere in the door. He went in the back doors, but Reagan red around, he go get the food.
What inspired you to start playing baseball?
Tony Stone started me at Greenwood. When I saw Tony playing, that made me want to play too. I want to be playing. I'm just a kid sitting in the stand.
What inspired me was one day I was outside and I had a tennis ball. And I had a baseball bat trying to hit that tennis ball. That was not doing me any good. So I cut my mama broom down. That taught me, you know, a tennis ball got a lot of force stuff on it. If you throw it in the wind, it's going to do something. That taught me to be a great hitter. That taught me to keep my eye on the ball. And if you think it's easy to hit a tennis ball with a broomstick, you go home and you throw it up in the air and you swing at it. It's not easy, but it teaches you to keep your eye on baseball. I had a chance with a very good friend of mine, Terry Pilkington, first day coach at Atlanta Braves. He told me one day, he said, when I first came over with the Braves, I couldn't catch a lot of them. He said one of the old Negro League players told him, get a tennis ball and throw it up against the wall and catch it. Now, if you take a tennis ball and throw it up against the wall, it's coming back at you. I mean, it's coming at you. You seen Serena Williams serve? And those are rackets got plastic strings on it. Now, when you throw it up against a brick wall, that tennis ball, Cherry Pilkington, and next, he did it all during his life. That next spring, he won a Golden Glove. He did with the Atlanta Braves. That's what really inspired me to play baseball.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. I'm just thrilled to be in the room with all of you, and I admire everything you guys did. I'm curious, when you were traveling in those years, obviously you played, I'm assuming, everywhere around the country, south, north, west, wherever. Did you notice a difference in treatment in different places? In other words, were there some cities that were better than others, some that treated you worse than others? Thank you.
You know, that's a very important question. You know, they talk about the South and how prejudiced the South is. Let me tell y'all something. I played professional baseball in the Midwest. There's not a place in this country as prejudiced as the Midwest. The Midwest, I mean, there is a difference, sir. There's a difference in every part of the United States. There's a difference in the treatment. St. Louis, I love them to death. They have the most professional organization in baseball. They took care of me when I signed my professional baseball contract, and they treated me with respect. But the rest of them,
I would like to tell you this. I played in the Yankee farm system, and I played in Kobe. And when I was up there, everybody was my friend as long as I played baseball. Now this is Fargo, North Dakota. But now when we came home from the road trip and stayed at home for a week or two, or a week, whatever, the time, every ball player on that team stayed in home except me. None of them people wanted me to live in their house, or even be in their house, but they would love to come out and see me play baseball. but they wouldn't let me stay in their home. And that goes to show you that it's no different anywhere. Black man does not have any leeway at all. He is hated everywhere, and he wasn't that day.
When I was playing with Satchel Paige back when we had a booking agency. He lived in Lloyd, Wisconsin. So we would be playing one day in Wisconsin, next time we would be in Nebraska, and they would send us pretty much all over the country playing. And all we had time to do was take a shower after the game and get on a bus or whatever to ride maybe 300 miles to the next place to play a game. We played all up like South Dakota and North Dakota. Playing up there, we get into town one day at the hotel. We get all these people coming around. They looking at us like, we never seen blacks before out here. Never seen a black person. And you know how that goes. The next thing is like, they're walking around trying to touch you to see what you look like. And actually they thought that, they hate to say this, but they thought that was monkeys and had tails.
I really just showed to tell you that I'm a living testimony to one of the players up there. I heard one gentleman say to get an education is very important. I'm Bill McCrary's son. I'm walking in with the yellow, trying to look like me. I travel all over the country with him. He wants me by his side, and he won't go unless I go. So when he calls me and asks me to travel with him, I have no reservation about it. When the gentleman said, listen to your parents, I'm a living testimony that you should do that. Because my dad, one bit of advice that he wanted to give me is that leave, now don't get this wrong, but leave the girls alone when you're trying to achieve your goal. Well, why is he saying that? Well, if you do that and you achieve your goal, the girl will be there when you achieve your goal. And the one thing I most admire about my dad is that he had a strong determination to do what he wanted to do. I was just as good a ball player as he was, but I didn't heed that bit of instruction. I couldn't leave the girl alone. I had to have the girl instead of pursuing my, baseball like he did. So he's telling you the truth. If you can leave the girl alone, I'm not saying, it's all right to date, this, that, and other, go through the adolescence and all that. But to really get serious at a young age, leave the girl alone. As I said, I could play ball just as good as he did, but he was a better hitter than me. But all the other aspects of the game, I was better than him. All other aspects, speed, fielding, all of that, I could do better. But he was a tremendous hitter. I can remember going to the ballpark, and I was maybe 5, 6 years old, and watching him hit the ball. I got a great memory about things way back then. I'm 65 years old, but I can't remember what I did yesterday sometimes. So these guys, they're a bunch of fun to be around them and interact with them and listen to their stories. It's been a great pleasure to meet a guy in the second from the stand-up. You know what I'm talking, the big dog. Tremendous person, all four of them tremendous people, but the big dog kind of struck my heart. along with my dad. Thank you very much.
I have a tip, especially for the kids and the grown-up who teaching their kids about baseball. And I need to show it to you. I can do it here or out there when we're doing all the line. But this is something very important for me to show the kids. When you're playing baseball, I would notice with speed. 3.8 seconds going to first base. This is very important. I see too many kids out playing baseball. When they throw in the baseball, they throw the baseball like this. Their back leg is still here, right? There's nothing but a whistle. So that's going to kill your arm in the throw. You cannot throw the ball and get something on it. The next thing, when you're in the outfield or infield, when you're down, you can't stand up and do nothing. So please get down on your knees. If the ball is hit to your left or right, if it hit to the right, never pick this foot up. You're in the same spot, right? So what you got to learn to do when the ball is hit here is cross over. Look, you're way over here now. You're not back here. So this is how you get the jump on the ball, by crossing over. And stay on your toes when you're wrong. If you go back on your heel, remember this. You say, I never heard that before. You go back on your heel, your eyeball jump, you're going to lose sight on the ball. Remember that.
Gentlemen, I've heard one of you refer a couple times to Rickwood Field down in Alabama. I had the opportunity to be there last year, and it was an awesome experience. Definitely recommend to anybody, if you're in the South, go find Rickwood Field. One of the things I think many of us experience is you go on the road, you go see a game somewhere that's not near Rochester, and when you first walk into a stadium and you're coming down the tunnel towards the seats, and the field opens up and you see the greenness of the field, you get this feeling very new again of that love of baseball and what you're about to experience. With that in mind, gentlemen, if each of you could tell us, what was your favorite location to play ball? Whether it was a major league stadium, if you were in the Midwest playing in a cornfield, up in Canada, down in Alabama, what field, what stadium really struck you as one of your favorites?
My favorite was in Miami Marlins old stadium. I was in the Florida State League, and the reason it's my favorite, you see that scoreboard in left center field, the whole stadium, I get 2 home runs, right? No one had that score. That's why it's my favorite.
I think my favorite was playing up in Canada and playing Regina, Saskatchewan, and that was a beautiful ballpark, and I enjoyed playing that.
Greenwood Field. That's my favorite park, because that's my home. I played there more than any other ballpark in the United States. I got a chance to hit 1 home run out there with that 407. I hit it over there, they said, went over the brick wall in the back of it. So that's my favorite spot.
My favorite spot is anywhere that I could play a game of baseball.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Rickwood, because that's why I moved from Macon, Georgia to Birmingham, Alabama. When I was playing with the Raleigh Tigers, we came there and played Birmingham Black Bear, and we beat them. I walked through that park and saw a plaque, Babe Ruth, Reggie Jackson. I saw a plaque of a lot of great ball players that been through that ballpark on the wall. And I heard about all the great ball players that been there. I wanted to be a part of that great tradition at Rickwood Field. Right now they're renovating. They don't want to lose, so they're fixing it up. That park, 102 is 102 years old. The park in my hometown, Macon, Georgia, is 101 years old. It's the second oldest ballpark in the country. So I have two ballparks that I really love. Rickwood and Luther Williams Park in Macon, Georgia. Some of you, if you ever in Birmingham, Alabama, go down to Redwood Field. You'll be amazed to see who played in that ballpark. Some of the greatest ballparks in the history of the world. Ball players in the history of the world played in that ballpark. That's why I moved to Birmingham, Alabama. And since I've been there, I've been a part of it.
I was hoping we could talk a little bit about the owners of the Negro League franchises. Was this a profitable business? Did you ever have contact with the owners, and just who were some of these people?
Man, I'll tell you something. You go out there on baseball, you're wrong. And you see 20,000 folks in there, and that owner don't give you a $5 day to eat with, you don't want me to tell you what I want to do to him. That's the way all of them owners look. They got fat and rich.
The owner I had, his name was Arthur Dobbs. He was a millionaire. And he would walk around chewing tobacco and carried a lot of change in his hand. But he was the tightest owner that I ever seen because he would not give up the dollar bills.
And he and I paid for the same owner.
I also played for the Raleigh Tigers. Bill was the owner when I was 16. I just don't bring it up.
He don't want to tell it.
Last question here?
Last question. How many teams were there in the Negro Leagues?
I mean, the what?
How many teams?
were there?
Team.
Let me tell you, it's hard to say how many teams are in the Negro League. Let's go back to 1920 when the league started. February the 13th at YMCA in Kansas City, Missouri. It started out with 7 teams in America and 7 teams in the National. When they ended up with 4 teams in 1962.
They started
At
out with
one
1
time.
team, but ended up with 4.
Now, the number at one time, there was 98 teams participating in the Negro League. But there was only 4 at the end in 1962. Did I answer your question, sir?
I just want to thank these gentlemen here. Thank you so much for sharing the stories, answering our questions.
And I just want to let everybody know that after we're done with the formal part of the program, they're going to be out in the hallway, and I'm sure they'd love to regale you with more stories and answer some more questions. This is an evening not only for where they have been kind enough to share their stories, their inspirational, remarkable stories, but it's also an evening in which we want to honor them. And I mentioned about they were forgotten by history. They had to overcome so much, and we want to recognize them. And we have a number of different honors we want to give them. And I want to start with a guy who was a pretty good fair ball player himself. His sport, though, was football, and representing the city of Rochester is Tony Jordan.
Good evening. Good evening. I know this was all amazing and maybe y'all are still amazed, but good evening. Before I read the proclamation from the mayor, I would be wrong for saying thank you all, because as it was mentioned, I played at Kansas State University, and then I was able to play in the NFL, and some of the stories you were sharing made me think about some of my experiences. And I'm old enough that I played football at Kansas State, and my quarterback was Kansas State's first black quarterback. And if you think about college football today, many teams have black quarterbacks, and it's pretty common. So some of the things that you all experienced wasn't as prevalent or visible. It was there, but it wasn't as visible. But I got to see things that most people didn't, because my quarterback was the first black quarterback. So I want to say thank you. I appreciate you all, paving the way, opening the doors, because now it's common for gentlemen to go off to college, to have these great pro careers. And I know that you all made some of that happen for us today. It made it so that we could have a chance. So thank you from all my guys that played. So I want to give you greetings from our mayor. She had many obligations and was here last year and was amazed as well, and enjoyed the opportunity to meet all the ball players that are here, and really wanted to make this proclamation. So I'm going to read some of it, or most of it. We are honored to celebrate the lives and legacies of 4 athletes from the Negro League. We are thankful for their incredible stories that they lived through this unique program. These athletes have important lessons to share about social justice, perseverance, integrity, and triumph in the face of adversity. I'm grateful for the efforts of the Klein family in creating this educational event. I'm confident that the audience members of all ages will be moved and enlightened, and I'm sure you were. Were you not? Were these stories awesome? And I'm just going to read through some of it because, like I said, it is important that we recognize you. Our mayor appreciates you, and like I said, when she was here last year, she could connect because she was very close to her grandfather. And I know Mr. McCleary, you remember, and Mr. Walker, you remember. She was very pleased to be here and meet you, gentlemen. So whereas father and daughter team Jeff and Michaela Klein, supported by their family, have been engaged in an ongoing community service project paying tribute to retired baseball players from what was known as the Negro Leagues. By organizing and hosting special events for the Rochester, New York area, they stepped up to the plate, stories of inspirations from segregated baseball. And whereas, although many African-American athletes played baseball with whites in the 19th centuries, black players were not allowed to compete with whites when Major League Baseball was created in the 1800s. Players formed their own leagues so that they could continue playing sports that they loved. The Negro League had its highest level of success in the 1940s, and the last team disbanded in 1961. Whereas they stepped up to the plate focuses on players who continue to play segregated baseball after Jackie Robinson broke the barrier in 1947, all players living among us, largely in anonymity, deserve recognition. So we thank you. We do know you're here, and we appreciate it, and we're honored to have this opportunity. We know you're here. Whereas, the second installation of They Stepped Up to the Plate honors the former Negro League players who will generously share themselves, and they did, with this community. Featured guests are Jake Sanders. Please give him applause again. Detroit Stars and Kansas City Monarchs in 1955 through 61. Ernest Fan, catcher in 1962 for the Raleigh Tigers. Mr. Bill McClary, shortstop for the Kansas City Monarchs. And Mr. Ike Walker, our own Mr. Ike Walker, who played with the Satchel Paige All-Stars. Now, therefore, I, Lovely Warren, Mayor of the City of Rochester, do hereby proclaim Thursday, July 18th, 2017 to be the day to celebrate They Stepped Up to the Plate, stories of inspiration from segregated baseball. Can we give them a round of applause? proclamations are from the mayor's office. And we thank you once again.
Thank you so much, Tony Jordan. And let's give Tony a round of applause. Tony is a product of Rochester and a guy who made it to the top of his profession in the National Football League, and he's come back and given back to his community. So thank you so much, Tony, for all you do for our community. The next level from the city, of course, is the state, and we're fortunate to have some proclamations here from Senator Rich Funke. Rich had wanted also to be here on hand but could not, but he sent some wonderful proclamations. I'm not going to go through all the whereases, but what's interesting, each of these are tailored for the individuals here, so I would like, if you could just bear with me, to read the excerpts that are specific to each of the honorees here. The first one is Ike Walker, and I didn't realize this, but whereas he was born in Catskill, New York, Ike grew to love baseball by enjoying the sport in the company of family and friends, particularly his brother Oscar, who upon being invited to play for the Satchel Paige All-Star team, took Ike along with him, and both ended up making the team. And whereas Ike played for the Satchel Paige All-Stars in 1963 as a catcher, pitcher, and outfielder, after the 1963 season he signed with the New York Mets, spent a year in their minor league system with Williamsport and Auburn affiliates, later closing out his professional career in 1964 with St. Lazare Athletics of the Manitoba Senior League. After his retirement, Ike made his way to Irondequoit, New York, where he remains a resident today. Thank you so much, Ike, and this is from Senator Rich Funke. Next one is for Ernest Fain. And I like that big dog nickname, by the way. You're going to have to tell us a story about that afterwards, okay? Like how you got that. His distinctive nickname has stuck with fans since he was 6 years old, after a friend in the neighborhood decided Ernest just wouldn't do and Big Dog was a more fitting moniker. Fan started his professional career straight out of Macon High School in the year 1962 as a catcher for the Negro League Raleigh Tigers, before being quickly signed to a major league contract, becoming one of the first black players in the Major League Baseball system after the integration of the sport. So this is again from our local state senator, Rich Funke. Ernest, thanks so much. Next one is for James Sanders. Said, James found his passion for baseball on the fields alongside Englewood Elementary School in Fairfield, Alabama, where he and his friends would play pickup games with a broomstick and a tennis ball, leading to a determination to follow in the footsteps of his favorite player, Willie Mays, also a Fairfield Industrial High School alumnus. Whereas James started his professional career in the year 1956 as an outfielder for the Detroit Stars, and later joined the Kansas City Monarchs team for the 1957 and 1958 seasons. In the former stint, James hit an incredible .340 for the season and was selected to appear at the East-West Negro League All-Star Game, where he slugged a triple and scored a run. James Sanders. And then William McCary. William Youngblood McCary excelled in the sport of baseball for many years as a player in the Negro Leagues and the Major League Baseball system. William started his baseball career in the year 1946 as a reserve shortstop for the Kansas City Monarchs team, where he earned the nickname Youngblood from teammate Satchel Paige that would stick with him even to this day. William found himself playing alongside or against players he had idolized like Cool Papa Bell, Ted Double Duty Radcliffe, love that nickname, and of course the legendary Paige. Soon, William became the Monarchs' starting shortstop in 1948 and ended up playing with the team for 2 full seasons, completing his career with an incredible lifetime batting average of .341. Bill McCary. And we've gone from the city to the state, and now we want to go national here. Congresswoman Louise Slaughter, who was here last year, obviously has some duties going on right now in Washington, D.C. She would have loved to have been here, but can't. But representing her is Bobby Wilson. Bobby, would you come up and make a presentation? Thank you so much.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here tonight representing Congresswoman Slaughter. She is in Washington and wishes she could be here as well. It's a wonderful evening. It's an evening to sing the praises of the unsung heroes. And to that end, we have certificates of congressional recognition. And I'm going to read one of them to you. They're all the same. Certificate of Special Congressional Recognition presented to Ernest Fain in honor of your contribution to civil rights and baseball, signed by Congresswoman Slaughter. So I will hand them out and thank you. Excuse us. The others, I got theirs from the Congresswoman a few years ago, right?
Yes. The other ones received theirs from the Congresswoman the last time she was here.
Yes,
So.
that's right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bobby, and thanks to Congresswoman Louise Slaughter. And now for another presentation, I'd like to bring back up to the podium Jeff Klein.
There's another player that we had corresponded with, Jim Zapp, who unfortunately is no longer with us, but we did create an award named after Jim Zapp, and I'd like to read that to you because I want to get everything and do it the right way to honor his legacy. Jim Zapp was born on April 18, 1924, in Nashville, Tennessee. He began playing baseball in 1942 while in the Navy stationed in Hawaii, and his team won back-to-back championships in 1943 and 1944. In 1945, after his discharge from the Navy, Zapp began his professional career with the Baltimore Elite Giants of the Negro National League. He played in Baltimore in 1945 and 1946 before joining the Atlanta Black Crackers. In 1947, this hard-hitting outfielder hit 11 home runs and gained the attention of the Birmingham Black Barons, where he earned an outfield position the following spring. During the regular season in 1948, Black Barons manager Piper Davis gave Zapp a rest and inserted a teenage rookie named Willie Mays in his left field spot for the second half of a doubleheader. Later in the season, when center fielder Norman Robinson broke his leg, Mays stepped in and used the opportunity to demonstrate his defensive skills on an everyday basis. Mays had trouble hitting a curveball and was not a significant offensive factor, but his defensive skills earned him the starting position in center field next to Zapp. When Norman Robinson eventually returned to the lineup, he was put into left field to utilize his speed and glove, and Zapp was benched for a short time. Fortunately, Zapp fought his way back into the lineup in time for the playoffs. His batting helped Birmingham win the Negro American League title. In Game 3 of the league championship series against the Kansas City Monarchs, with his team down, he hit a home run in the bottom of the ninth inning to tie the game. This clutch performance started the ninth inning rally in which Birmingham would go on to win 4-3 and gain a one-game advantage in the playoffs. He played with several semi-pro and minor league teams between 1949 and 1955 before retiring from baseball and going to work as a sports director for the United States Air Force's Civil Service Division in Big Springs, Texas, where he retired in 1979. A lifelong dedication to baseball and youth, he also coached Little League and umpired for 20 years. We received autographed cards from Jim in April 2014, just days after his 90th birthday. We are honored to have these as part of our collection because, unfortunately, Mr. Zapp was hospitalized shortly thereafter with end-stage Alzheimer's and wasn't expected to make it to his 91st birthday. Throughout Jim's hospitalization, we maintained contact with the Zapp family through his son, James, a retired Army Sergeant Major. Mr. Zapp continued his fight until September 30th, 2016, when he passed away at the age of 92. Jim Zapp epitomizes what they stepped up to the plate is all about. Facing hardships and adversity in baseball and in life, Jim never gave up. And like the players before you, he stepped up to the plate. With the blessings and approval of the Zapp family, we are proud to announce the second Jim Zapp Courage Awards and present them to Ernest Fan and Jake Sanders.
Thank you so much, Jeff, and congratulations, gentlemen. I just want to thank everybody again for coming tonight. And again, I would encourage, go to the Facebook page, go to the GoFundMe page. We want this to become even better. There's more people than these gentlemen who deserve as well to be recognized. And I just also want to take a moment to thank and acknowledge Jeff Klein and Michaela. It's their brainstorm, and it's because of them that we are discovering this lost history. So thank you so much for what you've done here. It's fabulous. And I think Big Dog wants to follow up on that, so I'm going to give him the last word, and then these gentlemen will be here to sign and to talk with you in the hallway afterwards. And we also graciously, we have hors d'oeuvres in the back of the room there. Please partake of those. So thank you again for coming, and the last word goes to Big Dog.
You know, it's been so long since we've got the recognition that we deserve. But because of people like this, we're not getting it. And we want to thank him, that young lady right there, his wife and kids, for what they're doing for us. Believe me, they touched our hearts tonight. Thank you.
Thanks again, everybody.